housekeeping issue before we get started. If you have your cell phones, please turn them down or off so that they don't disturb anybody during the meeting. And with that, the clock says 5 o'clock, so we will call the meeting to order. First order of business tonight is the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice.
All right, the next item on the agenda this evening is the approval of the minutes from the May 16th, 2023 meeting.
I would make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second. Put it to a vote.
Grant,
Yes.
McLean,
Yes.
Calvin,
Yes.
Parks,
Abstain.
Mauer. Yes. Upshaw.
Yes.
Dees.
All right. The next item on the agenda is a public hearing for the consideration and vote to recommend approval of conditional use permit for commercial services at 302 North Oak. The Haven Properties are the applicants. Before we open the public hearing, I don't know that I need to remind everybody because everybody's been here, it looks like before. But if you want to speak during the public hearing, please step to the microphone, state your name and your address for the record. So with that, I'd take a motion to open the public hearing. Motion. Got a motion, second?
I'll second it.
Got a motion and a second.
Grant,
Yes.
McLean,
Yes.
Calvin,
Yes.
Parks. Yes. Mauer. Yes. Upshaw.
Yes.
Dees.
Okay. Public hearing is now open.
Okay, this is a consideration for conditional use permit for an event space, including weddings under commercial services and the land development ordinance. The application was submitted by Blake Harris of the Haven Properties LLC, and the property is owned currently by Brady Brothers LLC. The property located at 302 North Oak is located in the NCR1 district and consists of approximately 2.3 acres. All events planned for the property will take place inside of a nearly 15,800 square foot building that's planned to undergo a complete renovation. Applicant has stated space would accommodate up to 300 guests. This would be contingent. Those limits would be set by building and fire codes during the review process, which all planned renovations would have to be reviewed for compliance with the currently adopted building and fire code of the city of Paola. Since the primary use would be for weddings, events would take place mostly on weekends. During events, staff will be on site to facilitate operations, and there will also be staff present during non-event times for facility maintenance and other event-related transactions. Total parking spaces for the facility would be required to meet off-street parking as required by the LDO due to its change of use. A minimum number of ADA spaces will be required with at least one space being van accessible. Parking facilities will be designed with appropriate vehicular access to streets and be constructed of all-weather surface, not to include gravel. A loading area shall be provided with adequate off-street truck maneuvering space so as not to disrupt any public street right-of-way. Off-street loading should also be designed so as not to interfere with any fire exits or emergency access to either enter the site or the building. Exterior lighting is regulated to eliminate spillover and glare on operators, vehicle operators, pedestrians, and other residential uses within proximity to all features. Lighting is intended to be used as described as soft lighting on the fence entrance posts and LED parking lot lighting face in a downward manner. Any lighting is regulated by the LDO to protect against both nuisance and hazard aspects of glare or excess light. So this will all be required to meet the standards during the site plan process. Prior to permitting for renovations, the applicant will need to secure site plan approval through the Planning Commission and City Council. The site plan will finalize parking, lighting, landscaping, utility, and drainage plans. The site plan will be reviewed for compliance with all ordinances by city staff and outside reviewers as deemed necessary. So the planning commission must ensure that the following standards shall be met. The proposed standards shall be consistent with the comprehensive plans and purposes, goals, objectives, and policies, including standards for building and structural intensities, densities, and intensities. It is looked at that economic development is outlined as a primary focus in the payroll planning payroll of 2050. It consists of attracting new businesses to help foster economic growth. The proposed use shall be compatible with the character of the land in the immediate vicinity. Due to the unique nature of this property, the proposed plan demonstrates the desire to accommodate both elements of the residential use surrounding the property and economic growth. The proposed use design shall minimize adverse effects, including visual impact on the proposed use of adjacent lands. And the proposed renovation of the nearly 75-year-old building would positively impact the neighborhood. Proposed use shall minimize adverse impacts on the environment, traffic and congestion, infrastructure, or governmental services. Conditions imposed may adequately reduce negative impacts on the surrounding neighborhood. Do you want to go over staff recommendations?
Yeah, go ahead and so everybody's aware of all of that. Yes, please.
Staff recommendations for the approval of the conditional use permit would be the following. Event hours, Sunday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. Friday, Saturday, and holidays, 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. With the caveat that music shall cease at least 30 minutes prior to the end time to ensure guests leave in a timely manner. All events must take place indoors. No amplified music shall be permitted outdoors. No consumption of alcoholic beverages outdoors. No fireworks as defined in Article 3 of the Code of the City of Paola, Kansas. All staff and or vendors must obtain applicable licenses as required for food and or alcohol service. Liability insurance in the amount of no less than $1 million shall be maintained by the property owners at all times, listing the City of Paola as a certificate holder. City staff shall have authority to inspect this facility at all times to ensure compliance with all conditions. And at any time, the city may institute revocation of the conditional use permit for violations of the condition of approval, expiration, or the reasons specified in section 21.225 of the land development ordinance. The city shall provide notice to the landowner and public in the same manner as was provided for the establishment of the conditional use permit.
Thank you, Jessica. All right, I know there's people from the public that want to speak, so who wants to go first?
My name is Mike Welter, 206 North Walnut Street, and I have planned to speak on some things. I didn't want to just stand here to hear myself talk. But after looking at this and hearing what I just heard from Stephanie. Yes, sorry. You've addressed some of our concerns that we had about outside partying and those types of issues. I think my question would be on traffic flow. I know that you are saying it's going to be directed in from onto Tower Street, and traffic flow exiting the place might be an issue too to be considered. And I think if this is going to go ahead and pass, there's none of us that really want to see the building deteriorate any further than it is. I wish this wasn't happening, but my gut feeling is that it's going to. And I'm not willing to be asked to leave another meeting. I guess that's all I wanted to say. If I could say anything, I guess I appreciate the changes that were made to address our concerns, even though there's not been a lot of input from the neighborhood. I wish that we could establish or had established some type of relationship with the neighborhood, and so we felt like our voices were being heard early on. This does address some of the issues that the neighbors have talked about. That's all I can say.
So, Mike, is your biggest concern traffic?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. And I know that there was talk about you know, the school, there was traffic when there was school. This is a little different because, usually there were classes going on at 10 or 11 o'clock at night, type of deal, but, I guess it looks like things are gonna be controlled. If they're not, I guess we have a way to address that issue and hopefully we can do that in a civil manner.
To touch on your traffic question, I was, per the site plan, if this passes and per the site plan later, is there gonna be a traffic flow study done? I know what they want to do isn't really gonna, it's kind of hard to predict traffic flow, but is anything gonna be done along those lines for the site plan?
There's no, there is a section of the that we can require traffic study, yes.
Okay,
If that is something that you feel necessary, it can be.
okay. Well, it'd be hard to judge because
You're
I
right,
mean,
there's nothing there to
yeah, there's
get
nothing
flow, but
for baselines,
And,
so.
and I would tell you along those lines, that you may be well aware that on College Street, the 200 block of College Street, they're parked on both sides of the street.
Right.
It's hard getting the vehicle through there at times.
Yeah.
Something to consider, you're looking at this. So that's all I've got.
Right.
Harry Courtney, 310 North Walnut Street. Again, as Mike said, some of the issues have been addressed. Some of them I'm still concerned about, and that deals with the character of the neighborhood and how this fits into that character of the neighborhood. You've all gotten letters from me. I've written letters to the editor. I've talked to others about it. In your land development ordinance, it says it's in place to preserve and promote public health, safety, and welfare through well thought out growth and development. I know that we're thinking through this. Just this past weekend, I sat on my front porch and watched a father pushing a child in a stroller and another child learning to ride his bicycle along the street. On a Saturday, you start getting this traffic in. Are we going to tell these kids you no longer can play in your own neighborhood because there's traffic there that you don't know what's going on? So I do have concerns with how the increased traffic is going to impact. Shutting down the playground doesn't make any difference to me one way or the other, but taking away the ability for us to enjoy the neighborhood, our front yards. Again, this is going to be less than 100 feet from my front door. I don't know how many of you really would want something 100 feet from your front door. You may like it. If you do, my house may be for sale. You don't know. Anyway, part of the goals that it says in your land development ordinance is to protect and enhance Paola's unique community character, to provide residents with the assurances that the character of their neighborhoods will be protected, to plan for the individual and using community character types. It also provides for justifiable expectations, including protecting landowners from adverse impacts of adjoining developments, abating nuisances by regulating approximate uses, compatibility using quantifiable performance standards, maintaining a desirable lifestyle for residents. The conditional uses are allowed, but they also require that you, again, promote public health, safety, and welfare. Specifically, it says the proposed use shall be compatible with the character of the land in the immediate vicinity. The proposed use shall minimize adverse impacts on the environment, traffic, and congestion, infrastructure, or governmental services. When we speak of the environment, they recently resurfaced Walnut Street, which was nice. However, they did not do the parking area that belongs to the property at the school. You put in the parking lot there, the drainage is going to come back towards Walnut Street. You're going to have problems. There's no place for the water to go other than to the west, which is where my house is located. So there will be environmental issues. I don't know how old the sewer lines and such are up there, but I do know they are old. I'd like to see them do an environmental impact study to find out where exactly the water lines, sewer lines run, how old they are, and are they capable of doing it? Again, you can go back and say it was a school. Well, not to be indelicate, but my dad was a plumber. You get other people in there, you're going to find things flushed down the toilet that school-age kids did not flush down the toilet. There will be sewer problems. I can guarantee you that. So again, in my letters to the editor, to the planning commission and staff, I detailed what I know to be the character and characteristics and the demographics of the neighborhood. I've lived in the area for 20 years. I'm a lifelong resident of Paola. You cannot fixate only on the Old North School property as if it were its own island. You have to view where it's located in the very center of the neighborhood. The only way you can get to it is by going into and through the neighborhood. There's no other access. If it was on the periphery, it would make sense. You have other ways to get to it. You're not intruding on the neighborhood's lifestyle. Now, I don't know how much any of you know about the neighborhood. I don't know how the venue of Mr. Harris's magnitude is going to be consistent with the character. What are the commonalities? Who can tell me that? I would really like to know that the character will be protected, that there won't be any issues. I personally ask each one of you and Mr. Harris to individually state what your research and or knowledge of the character of this neighborhood is and how it fits into it. What do you know about the neighborhood? What research did Mr. Harris do? Does he know there are 30 school-age children under the age of 14 that live in the neighborhood, ride their bikes in the neighborhood? Do you know who lives up there? Again, this is in the very heart of the neighborhood. It's not on the edge. You have to go through the neighborhood to get to it. You are going to disrupt people being 100 foot from their front doors. I also note on his very well put together item here that he mentioned someone who would be on staff for overnight visits. The application he applied for, I believe, was for commercial services. At what part of that does it say overnight lodging is allowed? That would be more of a bed and breakfast, a boarding room, hotel or something. That's not included in commercial services, the way I read the land development ordinance. So is he going to be allowed to have overnight stays and turn the rooms into suites? And if so, under what guidance? What gives him the authority to do that based on how the application was submitted? I've not seen the application. I'm not privileged to do that. Hopefully you have seen it, you have looked at it, you have read through it, you have formulated other questions. In my letter, I set out a lot of questions to you. Some involved lighting, some involved economic. Do we know, you say it's touting economic development for us? The contractor's going to be local? Are the service people going to be local? Is he targeting Paola and Miami County residents as his clientele? Or are we drawing from outside saying, oh, we're going to bring people in from outside? How does that improve the status of the community for the residents? That's enough.
Thank you, Terry. Anybody else?
Pete Bell, 209 North Castle. First, I'd like to say you did an excellent job compared to that first meeting and addressing a bunch of stuff. But there are some things that are left out, like the lady just said. Is there going to be people staying overnight?
Yes, according to the current site plan, there will be overnight lodging, yeah.
For how many people?
We don't need to.
Okay.
Okay. Is it part of the application or is it on the site? They don't have it. I think I can address that site. You're, good.
How many people roughly?
It sounds like it'll be controlled by the city. We were hoping for around 30.
30 people stay overnight. Yes,
That's all building and fire code related.
that's what.
Yeah.
It has not been reviewed at all yet. That part has not been reviewed.
So that's not part of the, what's passing tonight or being voted on?
Not the number.
Number, oh, because that's pretty significant. It's like having a hotel in the neighborhood. And that's something that will be just done without any further hearings or voting.
Why don't you just continue with your,
Pardon me?
will you just please continue? I'm not sure, but that's dictated by building code. I'm not sure if they'll even be able to have one, to be honest with you.
Well, this is a rather large issue. I didn't even think of it until she brought it up. But
Sure, it is, but he hasn't even given plans yet, you understand, like,
it is,
we haven't,
what now?
we don't have building plans or anything yet to even review. CUP comes first for the use of the land, and then he spends the money to get all the.
I'm asking a question. when you get to the point of him saying how many people might stay overnight, is that something that is no longer gonna be controlled by the public?
Probably not.
And it should be discussed, part of this plan.
Okay. Go ahead. Just please continue. This is what we're just trying to say. Please go ahead.
No, you just asked me to go ahead.
It is,
You made,
it is,
you made your point.
it is in the plan, six logic
I didn't
for
even
wedding.
think about that it's not very fair to say, well, it can't be brought up or talked about.
Well, the number, the number. She
didn't
The
say the
number will be dictated by building. That's all she tried to say.
The number of rooms is in the plan
I understand.
that's available.
I understand.
Yeah, okay.
The plan, the details as presented, what you had to say tonight, said nothing about people staying overnight. That's what I saying.
Okay.
That's like me coming in.
Thank you.
To run an auto repair shop and then saying, I'm really gonna paint too. But we should, everybody else is involved, that EDA is a whole different thing.
Okay.
My other concern is the parking lot, two things about the parking lot. There's obviously no apparent water retention on it, which is gonna cause some issues. Where the water runs out, especially in the winter, and then freezes going down the hills. And second, like the lighting, there should be the lighting facing toward the building, not the residential houses.
And that's already covered in it.
It says a
Lots of
point.
things are covered, but when you see things being built, that's not necessarily what's done.
If you read the conditions of the conditional use permit, it addresses the lighting issue.
And that'll all be dictated per code, building code.
Building code saying that the lights commission on place residential and must face.
That's the downward facing lighting.
That downward doesn't cover it because it's up in the air and the light comes right back on people's window.
It's dictated by, I believe, what is it's candle lumens and their cutoff fixtures. The LDO is very specific
And
on
how
what is
far,
allowed.
and how far they go out from the structure that they're attached to.
Okay. And then lastly, on the street access, on your map on the back. This is from. I experienced,
Do you commissioners have the handout from, are you referencing the handout from they don't, that was not provided to them. That was brought to them by Mr. Harris.
they probably have more detail or knowledge than this anyway. Based on my 40 years of living here, one of the major access in and out of here is College Street. And when people leave this facility, they're going to head east. East is the direction to go back to Kansas City. And they may go back up Pearl and then, but more than likely, a lot of them go down College Street. And if you're going to do this, I would like on the somewhere before you get to the corner of Castle. To put a sign up as you're eastbound that indicates the road is right turn only. Because with nobody there, we still have a lot of issues of people coming up the dead end and then using our driveways to turn around in. And it's a problem there. As you approach, I don't know if you know where Arlen Coker is, but he's on the corner. He's got 2 no parking signs there and 2 on the next side. I mean, I got 4 no parking signs there, but maybe you could replace one of those with a right-hand turn only, so when strangers come down there on the ice, they don't keep crashing into our area there, which is just the best procedure. And nothing's going on. In fact, those people live in the neighborhood and still crashed into it. So that's my main concern is you're gonna do it, on the traffic. When you go westbound back to Pearl, you need to do the city's probably not the owner, but the city probably should do something about that corner. It's a super right hand, which forces people to pull out into oncoming traffic to make a turn unless you get a tiny car. Take it off some of that corner or something back there and make that a safer turn. That's all I got. All right, anyway, thanks.
Thank you, Pete.
Justin Elliott, 207 North Oak. I've spoken before about this issue and was against the change in zoning. Speaking for my wife and myself, we're in favor and excited about this possibility for the building and for that property. We think it'll be a good thing to see that building used, revitalized, and kept up. To echo some of the concerns, traffic, obviously. The circle drive that was mentioned on the front points right at my driveway. So obviously traffic, and I asked Jessica some questions and she said that it would be addressed during the site plan, but You know, right now, the east side of that, of Oak Street is no parking. The west side of that would be part of that Circle Drive. How is that gonna be handled? But other than that, I mean, we're excited about seeing the plans, what they're talking about doing, and seeing that building revitalized and cared for. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Terry?
I would just like clarification, since we are still talking about overnight stays. I really want to know what aspect of the LDO that he applied for, the guideline, the conditional use permit for services. Bed and breakfast is not, conditional services, that if I read it correctly, I went through everything and not a thing says about overnight lodging. Overnight lodging is its own separate entity. So I'm concerned with, why are we discussing that it's going to be however many? How do we know, what can you tell me that says it is allowable under these circumstances? I really want an answer to that question, and again, I really want to hear what each of you think the character of that neighborhood is. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, then I'll take a motion to close the, well, let me back up. Other than Terry's letter, did we receive any other written correspondence?
No, I communicated with Mr. Elliott
Okay,
about the parking aspect and site plan issues, but that was the one thing.
okay. Then with that, I would take a motion to close the public hearing.
I'd make a motion that we close.
A second.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second.
Grand,
Yes.
McLean,
Yes.
Calvin,
Yes,
Parks,
Yes.
Mallard. Yes. Upshaw.
Yes.
Please.
right. I'll go first. Obviously, it's kind of a unique piece of property. That's granted. It's a old school that sits in the middle of a residential neighborhood. That at one time it was a school and the neighborhood probably wasn't built up like it is now. And I will agree, there is some traffic challenges. Because of the roads there, some of them are hilly. But there were traffic challenges back when the school was in session every day, and I think it was Mike that pointed out they were different than this will be. Because that was Monday through Friday morning and afternoon type traffic. This will be more of a weekend type traffic situation. It won't, I personally don't envision it being an everyday type situation where there's an event going on there every day with that number of cars. Now, granted, there's, just like other event centers, there's other events that take place during the day once in a while. Companies have meetings, other organizations have meetings. I don't know how you solve the traffic issue. Because but no matter what you do with that property in the end, there's likely to be some traffic issues. It's just the nature of the beast. If you tear the building down and build 20 houses there, you're gonna have traffic issues. Just like then they're gonna be every day. They're not gonna be, on the weekends. I did drive through the neighborhood last night and there were kids riding their bicycles in the street. There were kids playing in the street. That is an issue that can happen anywhere in town. It's a safety issue. It's a parent issue. It's a lot of issues other than traffic issue. So that's just, I don't know how you solve the traffic part. So.
I'm concerned about the traffic, because I live in there. And, I'm just trying to picture where all these cars are gonna be outside of the ones that can park on site. And what additional traffic issues and getting through streets problems that will.
All the parking will be on site, will be off street on the property. They'll have to add to the parking lot.
We're gonna say the north end, so it'd be the grass area
Yes.
with all 120 spots or something, I think it says.
Yeah. Yeah, all parking will have to be off street. So,
And the parking area is gonna be revamped.
Oh, yeah, they'll have to do a new.
Okay, so when they, if it moves forward for site plan, are we gonna do any water runoff studies?
That's all part of it, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, there's a, in your memo, there, they have to do a drainage
Right.
study.
right, okay. So that should address all the stormwater runoff and all that stuff.
Any sort of detention, retention. We send that off to another engineer as well.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Is the event center strictly for weddings?
No, sir.
In other words, the city or the county, or there's a group of people in the community here want to have a meeting during the day or something like that. I was kind of unsure the way I was reading through everything that way.
Oh, should I step up, Jessica? So-
Yeah, sure.
Good to see you guys again. Yeah, the intended use is for wedding and events. So to give you some context, the Haven event space that I own in Lewisburg, on 247th and State Line, we do a lot of community events. We've done Lewisburg's prom. We do all the elementary school PTO events and fundraisers for Lewisburg and Cass Midway. They're right down the street from us. We've done Olathe Medical Center's Moon Over Miami event. We've done the Ferrari Club of America's Christmas party. We've done a lot of non-wedding corporate events over the last 2 years that have been awesome, bringing people to town and, you know, showing off the space, which is great.
Are you gonna offer any, because I know in Paola, there seems to be a struggle with finding a place just to have your kid's birthday party for, you know, December birthdays, January birthdays. Are you gonna offer anything like, I mean, it might be a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday afternoon or something like that?
Yeah, good question. So we do allow private events as well. So we have a birthday party coming up in 2 weeks. The challenge we find with weddings, which, you know, good thing and a bad thing, is they typically book 12 to 18 months in advance. So we know our calendar way in advance. So finding a day on the weekend is challenging. But the Haven does offer, and this is just for example, the Haven does offer just hourly rental for private parties at a flat hourly rate, a low hourly rate. It's not even close to comparable to what we charge for a wedding. Because obviously weddings are where the big money's at.
Right.
But if we don't sell that, then yeah, a couple months before, we'll charge a really small rate to get in there and use the main hall for a party. We did a baby shower last Sunday, things like that.
Your other event space, does it include catering?
We don't do catering at the Haven and we will not do catering in this facility. There will be no cooking on site. It's just a prep space, which is just stainless steel counters for caterers to come in and plate their food and serve it themselves. We have a preferred vendor list at the Haven that is basically relationships we've developed with high-end vendors all over Kansas City, some here local as well, that we basically will rely on for things like floral, entertainment, catering, hair, makeup, so many different, you know, vendors that can go into it. And we stay out of anything. All we do is the rental of the building and the bar service.
Since you brought that up, I had read that in the proposal and made a little note. Do you oversee and give oversight to the outside vendors? I know they signed, I know it says they signed a contract
Correct.
with you, but does that contract follow the regulations that are being set, the times,
Yes.
what can be served, where, and things like
Correct,
that?
yes, all the parameters on our vendors are set by me and my conditional use permit. So I'm, for context, under a conditional use permit at the Haven right now as well. So I already have parameters like this in place from the county, and because we're in Miami County there. And they're similar to what Jessica mentioned, so this won't be anything out of the ordinary for us. We're gonna run almost identical here, just it's gonna be a different style of venue, more indoor than outdoor.
And so you just hold those vendors accountable to what you
Yeah.
are held to?
Yeah, if we have a one strike policy, I mean, if we have a vendor that disobeys our rules, they're not welcome back in our facility, so.
Good.
In other words, the people, if that's part of it, spend the night, basically. There won't be any cooking for them for breakfast, or
No, we will not offer any.
they'll go out into the community to receive what they need.
Correct, yeah, we will have recommendations. I'm sure we'll set up partnerships with local restaurants. Maybe we can find a restaurant that would be willing to cater in breakfast. There's opportunities for economic impact there, but you know, ultimately, no, we're gonna stay out of the food side of things. It's just not our expertise, so.
and if kind of pursue from what John said, if there were overnight accommodations, it would only be for guests of a wedding, that type of situation. It wouldn't be like open to the public.
Correct, yeah, we're not opening an Airbnb here. We have no desire to do that. It's too hard to manage that. And again, with weddings booking 12 to 18 months in advance, well, they'll be booked anyway. So yeah, it would be exclusive for weddings. They will buy all the rooms or none of the rooms as part of their wedding package. We basically would give them an option to add on. We're calling it the dorms. We're playing on the fact it's a school. So they would get the access to the wing that's all the dorms, and they would have, they're basically 3-bedroom suites, that would basically sleep up to 30 of them.
So it'll be an all or nothing.
Correct.
And is there a time limit on the amount they can stay? Is it just one night?
They can purchase the night before or the night after. It's additional cost for each night. And hours of access that we're proposing would be, they would get access to the suites when I say the suites, I mean their overnight suites from 2 p.m. until 10 a.m. the next morning. And then that is completely separate from their venue rental, which would be, as Jessica mentioned, 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. on weekdays or 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. on weekends and holidays. So the rooms will be controlled and treated separately. We'll have like electronic badge systems that'll let people in certain areas and they won't work outside of certain times. So we'll be able to manage, the flow of where guests are and how they're being handled. So.
Have you had any contact with the new event center in Gardner that does this? They bought the old Catholic church.
I have not. No, I haven't.
They're in the middle of the neighborhood, one-way, small streets on one side, but they actually bought the whole, so they have the chapel. And then the old rector is the reception, I know they have housing, and then the bridal parties can get ready to stay overnight.
Wow.
And then the old fellowship hall is for the reception, so it seems very similar to.
Yeah, I haven't heard of it
I didn't know
yet.
if you talked with them, because it's very similar to.
I haven't. We have great relationships with all the other venues in the area, but that one I just haven't had the pleasure of meeting them. Any other questions for me?
You have everything booked.
Yes. Yeah, I'll be completely transparent. At the Haven, we're probably gonna book more than we book at the Lincoln is our understanding. It's a different style of venue. Most brides today are enjoying that outdoor space option, the indoor-outdoor feel, so we're very popular there. I would imagine we'll probably see around 80-ish plus events at the Lincoln per year, based on the 100 to 120 we do at the Haven. And that will encompass weddings and private parties. So some will be city council or, we do the Chamber of Commerce centers in Pittsburgh all the time. So those are, 2 hours on a Thursday night from 5 to 7, so little things too. Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Jessica, when touching back to the parking lot and everything, that will have to be brought up to LDO or building code standards as far as sidewalks and everything else.
Yes.
To address some of the concerns of the neighbors, because there's no sidewalks on that property. So
Right.
if there will be sidewalks, there will be access
Yes,
for,
so there will be the pedestrian access.
Right. okay. That was all the questions I really had.
Okay, John, you have any?
There's gonna be adequate parking for the tennis court that's there? Or is that
That's across the
across the street?
Yeah. Those
There
are-
in the-
those
It's
are-
actually privately owned, correct? No, it's not? Oh, I
A
always,
lot of people think it's mine.
I always assumed it was part of the property.
No, it's city
Oh, okay.
property.
Did not know that.
Do you want to have some parking for it?
43 years later.
Yes, so that burden would not be placed on the private
Okay.
property owner.
All right.
No, that was not a question I had, if somebody does want to use, where's their parking, or I don't even know how they park there now.
When I went by the other day, there was two cars parked on the street in front of it.
So I think I got.
Anybody else have any questions?
Is it, Justin, is it no parking on both sides of the street in front of your house?
Right now, the east side, which is my house side,
Northbound.
posted over, so on the east side of the building. The east side of that street is posted, no parking. The west side of the street, it's not posted that way, but I think probably from when it was a school, the curb is still painted yellow.
Okay,
Right in front of the school. Kind of ignore that part, but.
Okay.
But no, it's just no parking right now on the east side of it.
All right. Any further questions? I'll entertain a motion. Or you want to make a motion?
I will make a motion to recommend the approval of the conditional use permit with conditions for the Lincoln Event Space Haven Properties LLC applicant.
Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll put it to a vote.
DeGreen,
Yes.
McLean,
Yes,
Calvin,
Yes.
Parks,
Yes.
Mauer,
Yes.
Upshaw,
Yes.
Dees.
Yes.
Motion
All right,
passes.
motion carried. All right, thank you. The next item of business this evening is another conditional use permit hearing. This time is consideration and vote to recommend approval of an amendment to of a conditional use permit for heavy services and retail at 102 South Hospital Drive. Clint Davis is the applicant. I would take a motion to open a public hearing.
I would make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
We got a motion and a second?
DeGreen,
Yes.
McLean,
Yes,
Calvin,
Yes.
Parks,
Yes.
Mauer,
Yes.
Upshaw.
Yes.
Dees.
Yes.
Okay, so in reviewing for approval of CUP, a standard that is looked at is the ability to minimize adverse effects on public health, safety, and welfare of the proposed use and development to surrounding properties. Over recent years, the city's received different complaints, mostly regarding line of sight issues at the intersection of Weah and Hospital Drive. Other complaints received have been the number of vehicles stored along the south side of the property and the alley right away, number of inoperable vehicles behind the fence, and the intent to repair those inoperable vehicles behind the fence. After receiving complaints, staff will follow up on issues, and we reached out to the owner, Mr. Davis, and he has been working towards a solution to better serve the growing business along with citizens traveling and residing near the property. The line of sight issue has all but been resolved between our initial contact regarding that and now. Zoning does allow for an amendment to a conditional use permit, section 21-24. The conditional use permit for a use may be amended, extended, varied, or altered only pursuant to the standards and procedures for the approval of the original use set forth in this article. Recent non-compliance that has included condition 3 of his original use conditional use permit. Additional parking other than allowed by conditions 4, 7, 8, and 10. Condition 4, overnight parking is only permitted for 2 after-hours drop-off spaces and 2 spaces for display of for sale automobiles shall be allowed in the parking spaces along Hospital Drive. Condition 7, parking shall not be allowed in the area 15 foot south of Weah Street and 15 foot east of Hospital Drive. Condition 8, all work shall be completed within an enclosed structure, no exterior storage allowed. Applicant is asking for amendments to conditions 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, and 10. So the original conditional uses are hours of operation shall be limited to 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday. All customer and employee parking shall be located in the off-street parking areas. Any additional parking shall be screened from all residents and institutional uses with a 6-foot fence. No overnight parking except for 2 after-hours drop-off spaces and 2 spaces for display of for sale automobiles shall be allowed in the parking spaces along Hospital Drive. The setbacks of the existing structure at the time of the CUP are considered lawful. There shall be no additional expansions of the building or parking areas. Parking shall not be allowed in the area 15 foot south of Weah Street and 15 foot east of Hospital Drive. All work shall be completed within an enclosed structure. No exterior storage is allowed. The height of mature landscaping contained within the site triangle defined in section 11260 of the LDO shall be limited to 12 inches. The conditional use permit shall be limited to heavy auto service and related retail. In addition to auto service, a maximum of 2 for sale vehicles will be permitted on this property at any one time. After established business hours for sale vehicles shall be parked a minimum of 80 foot south of the center line of Wea Street. The conditional use permit shall allow for no other use. And the last, anytime the city may institute revocation of the conditional use permit for violations of the conditions of approval, expiration, or the reasons specified in section 21-225 of the land development ordinance. The city shall provide notice to the landowner and public in the same manner as provided for the establishment of the conditional use permit. That was a lot.
You did a good job.
So, what I've done is the hours of operation, I've left that the same. All customer and employee parking shall be located in off-street parking areas, that'll remain the same. So this is one that was asked for an amendment. What is being suggested is vehicles being serviced longer than 6 consecutive days shall be screened from all residential and institutional uses with a 6-foot fence. And then we've also suggested a change of no more than 6 vehicles may be parked overnight outside of the fenced area in the parking area along Hospital Drive only. The total number of cars in the fenced area shall be limited to 40. No more than 10 inoperable vehicles may be stored no longer than 60 consecutive calendar days. And just to, as a reminder, inoperable and defined in the LDO is unable to move under its own power. No parking is permitted along the alley right of way on the south side of the property. The setback of the existing structure at the time of condition 04 CUP 03 approval are considered lawful. This will remain the same. No, there shall be no additional expanses of the building or parking area. Line of sight at the intersection of Wea Street and Hospital Drive shall conform to figure 11-260, clear view of intersecting streets in the LDO. All major work shall be completed within the enclosed structure. Non-vehicle storage outside the structure and fenced area is prohibited. So that would allow some minor work to still happen in front of the bay doors. The height of the mature landscaping contained in the site triangle shall be limited to 12 inches. Then the number 12 and number 13 are the same as the last two. The conditional use permit is for heavy auto retail and service, and the CUP shall allow no other uses unless otherwise approved by planning and zoning. And then the note about revoking the conditional use permit for violations and such.
That pretty much covers all of the issues we've had.
It addressed, I feel, concerns of the applicant and kind of the meet in the middle sort of manner.
Anybody want to speak from the public? Yes, sir.
My name is Josh Brown. I live at 602 East Miami. And I just want to thank you guys for an opportunity to speak tonight. I live in close proximity to the shop and I'm also a customer there. And I would just say, as far as health, public health and safety and wellness, Clint is just a huge asset to me and to my family and to the community. He does phenomenal work. He's a great mechanic. He supervises his mechanics really well. And we drive a bunch of old vehicles and we rely on these vehicles on a daily basis, and he keeps us going. And it doesn't matter how crazy the circumstances is, he does his best to get that job done and as quickly as possible. And I would just encourage you guys to do whatever you can to help him operate efficiently and effectively. And I would just like to bring up that, like, even logistically, that since COVID and all the mess with that happened, the logistics of figuring out what's wrong with your vehicle, getting the part in, it's the wrong part, so you send it back and then you get the right part, and then it's just this ongoing cascade of events. It's a really difficult time to get repairs done and to get them done efficiently. So say how much I appreciate him and thank you guys for him.
All right, thank you. Anybody else?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Heath Beeple. I'm the new executive director of Arista Recovery, which is adjacent to the property. I'm not necessarily familiar with the existing conditional use permit, but what it is, and that was a lot. You're definitely right. But I wanted to clarify that currently, under current conditional use permit, there's only 2 spaces available for vehicles off of Hospital Drive. And the proposed amendment is now going to be 6. Is that accurate?
Proposed is 6, yes.
Proposed is 6. Okay. Now, obviously, one of our primary concerns is access as we continue to grow our client base as well as increase staffing. There's going to be more traffic down that. It's almost more like an alley than it is a street off of Hospital. But just making sure that there isn't the obstructions that it appears that there's been history of, including there's 2 customer spots on the off street as well. Would those also be in addition to the 6, or are we talking off street? Is it not Peoria? Wait, yeah, would that be where the off street parking would be for customers?
So what's recommended is just 6 vehicles overnight, so that it doesn't really address your customers coming and going throughout the day.
Your concern is down the alley, I'm kind of with you, it's an alleyway, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that's covered in here.
Yes,
They're not allowed to park on a right of way
correct,
going down through there.
correct.
So that would take care of the issue that you're currently having with that. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, I'm joining the Arista team here 3 weeks ago. So I have not had any issues, and that's usually where I wind up coming in, onward. At the same time, I do know that entry off of the hospital needs some upkeep, and I'm thinking that the additional traffic, whether the customer and or the additional vehicles, may take some additional attention as when you wind up turning into that area off of Hospital. There's that are already starting to emerge just from the 3 weeks that I've been there. So I don't know if is that city property or is that public? Is it ours? Do you all know?
It's an alley. It's an alley.
It is technically, yeah. Okay,
You're right.
Very good, very good. Obviously, we definitely want to be good neighbors and work together on that. Like I said, I've not had any challenges. I just don't want there to become one. And needless to say, historically, there seems that there has been some challenges, and that's only been 2 off street. So decision.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I'm gonna ask this also. Did we receive any written correspondence? Okay. In that case, nobody else wishes to speak. I'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion, close the public hearing.
Second,
We got a motion and a second.
Grant,
Yes.
McLean,
yes.
Calvin,
Yes.
Parks.
Yes.
Mallard. Yes. Upshaw.
Yes.
Dees.
Well, after looking through this, it looks like the changes are pretty much going to address the issues that we've been having over the years, I think. As long as Clint abides by the cup, everything we should be back to normal, and everything should go down the road, and I have no reason to believe he wouldn't. So with that, I'll make a motion, unless anybody has any further comments.
I just want to ask, like the alleyway, customers aren't driving down that themselves, you're just moving vehicles, correct?
Can I talk?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been hiding in the back there, good to see you guys. So no, typically as far as that alley goes, you know, I don't know if you've noticed, you know, I put some gravel back there and cleaned that up. That alleyway is pretty essential to what we do on a daily basis. So right now, the way we've got set up, customers drop off in front of the office, they go in, see the office guy, drop the keys off, here's what we need. One of us will go up front, get the car, and we take it out back. And we park it parallel out of the alley in that nice parking area, so it's out of sight, out of mind for a little bit. So the daily activities in front of the shop are unobstructed from having to move a car to move a car to move a car to move a car. So to lose that or not be able to use that is kind of a big deal. Because it is so essential to maintain flow and keep everything off the roads, you know, keep it off the hospital and keep it off of WIA. So that the question was, do customers going out there? No. No, that's us. So when somebody comes to pick the car up, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, we go out back, get the car, bring it up front, and then they go on their way. Like I said, the idea is to keep in front of the office open. You know, so at the end of the day, there's nothing essentially up front of the office, so that people can pick up and go as they please or drop off, you know, overnight. The stuff in front of the shop is typically what we call in queue. So it's being diagnosed, we're waiting on parts, you know, the quick little jobs. The bigger jobs that are waiting on engines and, you know, they're gonna be multi-week or even months, they go out in the fenced-in areas. Does that make sense?
The area you're talking about, when you take it around back and you park it parallel, you're talking right here?
Can I come up there and show you?
Yeah, along the, what would be the fence?
So it's outside of the,
Coming from here and parking to right here.
yeah, it's right there. So we cleaned that up and after the initial conversation with the gals here, I went in and straightened that up and made it look nice, and so there'd be no obstruction, because I know that had been an issue in the past where they couldn't get, you know, at Arista, they couldn't get through, and I recognize that, and I apologize, you know, for any obstructions. And then kind of what I mentioned to the gals was what I would like to do is still use that during the day, during business hours, and then just ensure that there's nothing overnight, you know, so we don't keep, that nothing's being stored out there. We just use it, like I said, during the day, because if it's in front of the shop, you gotta move it out the road, wait for traffic, move the car out of the shop, pull it back in, pull the car back in. It's a multi-person and it eats up a lot of time. And it just really clogs efficiency. And ultimately, that's the problem. That property is very inefficient, you know, for the design of it. And it's bordered by two pretty high traffic roads. So you basically can't do anything in the road between 7:30 and 8 o'clock in the morning because of school traffic. Again, about 11 to 12 when Lake Mary, everybody's going to lunch. And again, about 3 o'clock. I mean, just the traffic, we have to time the business according to those flows because the traffic is so great. So like I said, having that out back really helps us out a lot. Another thing I heard mentioned was no outdoor, can't work on stuff outside. Is that what
Major work,
major work?
no major, yeah, so we're not gonna, wouldn't want to allow, like a complete engine overhaul sitting in front of your bay door areas that would be reserved for in, but if you're doing a quick tire change, rotation, oil change, something that you can facilitate in a day time manner, that would be.
No motor swaps, but starter alternators.
Yeah, that's fair. The only thing, so I do a lot, I don't do a lot, but there's nobody around here that does any RV on chassis. So A to Z mobile RV repair, they're strictly what we call coach. Bathroom, living quarters, such as that. There's nobody in this area that does, you know, transmissions, drive shafts, such as that, anything what we call chassis. I'm pretty limited on what I'll do on a motor home, you know, as far as chassis goes, I won't do motor swaps because you have to do them outside. So you're really having to deal with weather, and then weather. If it's hot out, I'm not going out there. If it's raining, I'm not going out there. If it's cold. So, but for example, we may have noticed there's an RV sitting on the shop right now, overhauling the rear end, you know, differential. It's an 8-hour job. But, you know, parts have been back ordered, as was mentioned. I'm sure John knows all about that. That would kind of be the limit of what I would do outside. I'd like to have the ability to work on those RVs, because I do have a few really good customers that have them. And again, there's nobody around here that serves them. So, you know, wheel bearings, brakes, things like that, you know, something we can turn in a couple days, pending parts availability. So that would be awesome, if we could do that still. But I agree, yeah, no motor swaps, nothing on, no front ends off the cars out on the street. Looking unsightly. And then the no expansion thing that was discussed, do we know why that was discussed at all? Has that been discussed? Why I asked to have that amended? Has that ever been discussed? I want to build a new shop, ultimately is what it was coming down to. Because right now, it's a 5-bay shop. That shop was built in the 40s, so low ceilings and they're short. The bays are roughly 24 feet deep. Your average car is 18 to 20 feet deep. So you got about 4 foot of working space. Again, it all boils down to efficiency. And to further that, I've got 3 bays in which have a lift. So the studies in the industry have shown that to be efficient, each technician needs a minimum of 2 lifts to be efficient. You bring your car in, you diagnose it, you order the parts. That one's sitting there, you bring another car in, same story, you diagnose it, order the parts, and hopefully by the time this one's figured out, the parts are here for this one. So you can just keep turning them. Right now, we bring them in, we disassemble them, order the parts. Parts are in Kansas City, not gonna be here tomorrow. Put the thing completely back together, back it out, and then repeat the process. So we're doing a lot of the jobs twice, 2 or 3 times. And as Josh mentioned, you get one tore apart and it's the wrong part, and I gotta do it 3 times. So what I would want to do is build another shop. There's an area to the south of my building where it's about a 40 by 60 concrete slab. And I want to build a new building right there that would, make it more efficient to do what we do.
So to address why that is originally in there, there is, a sewer, the city sewer line running through there. So if you wanted to allow for a structure, a second structure, I guess, you could, just wouldn't be able to be built over that.
Right, so the sewer is about 3.5, 4 feet right south of the current building. There used to be an alley there. That was the original alley. So the alley we refer to now is actually Miami Street. So the sewer runs right down the middle of the original alley, which is right on what would be the property line of my neighbor and myself. So, yeah, the new structure would be over the top of any utilities, any current utilities.
So Jessica, if he wanted to build a new structure, would he need to come back and ask for another amendment?
If you all decided to take out number 8, no additional expansion to the building or parking area, then that lot where all those vehicles are is its own lot, so we have to do a lot. If you build it on that property, you wouldn't have to, but it would make it more clean and commercial.
It should be merged. I pay taxes on one piece.
Okay, so maybe,
She's merged.
okay, so then we would just have to look at lot coverage maximums and setbacks, and you'd have to reduce the number of cars that are there, because
Yeah, I mean, it would open up some
Yeah.
other issues.
Right.
Yeah.
All those cars, customers' cars.
A lot of them are. So one issue we've had, and I've been kind of lax on it, is you get a car in there and, let's face it, a $7,000-8,000 repair. I'll be honest with you, I mean, how many of us can swing that on a short notice? So that's a big hit. Matter of fact, we had 3 come in just within the last 6 days, engine jobs. The average engine job is anywhere from $8,000 to $10,000. Which in turn, the lead time on 2 of these projects, the engines aren't expected until September 1st of this year. So we're talking, 2-3 months, we're waiting on an engine, plus it's a $10,000 repair for Mr. and Mrs. Customer. So that's kind of a big deal. Again, I'm sure that everybody else kind of gets along with that. Not to use COVID as a crutch, but dang, it's kind of been an ordeal. Another situation that kind of like John, he touched on there was, so in the years, I've been doing this a long time, I've been doing this about 20 years. I've owned that shop just over 10, and my comeback rate, I've been pretty proud of, is in the 95 to 96 percentile. Meaning of 95-96% of the jobs I do, there's a small percentage that comes back for reasons of parts failure or something just didn't go right. So I've got a pretty good, success rate on getting the job done correctly the first time. In the last 2 years, that has changed to more like 40%. And the reason is part pick. And these parts that we're getting are just absolutely garbage. So we're getting a lot of comebacks, so we're getting a lot of warranty work, and then which falls back into the, parts availability. And so that's been a big problem, so which has created an influx in cars sitting around stagnant. Again, like I said, we had 3 cars come in just last week that need engines, and none of those engines are available until September from anywhere. So another thing that we discussed at one point was buying another piece of property and just moving. And yeah. But where? Where are we gonna go? I'm open to suggestions. That's like I said, that's one of the big things. To answer your question, a lot of those cars are customers' cars. For one reason or another.
So,
I think I derailed the question about the second building.
well, I think if you build the second building, even though the LDO says you're allowed X number of cars stored, your number of cars that you can store is gonna go down.
Right.
Only because you've used up part of your storage.
So, which leads into the next part I was kind of leading into is, oh, by the way, I found another building, I'm thinking about mine. There's another piece of property in our town that came to my attention within the last couple weeks. And, I'm thinking about trying to buy it. It's a building, essentially a warehouse. And if we can swing it, the idea is anything that's gonna be waiting for an extended amount of time, we will move to the other property. Because, well, another thing we have is abandoned vehicles. We've talked about that. Legally, the vehicle has to be abandoned for 90 days. And then you have to file the paperwork to gain ownership of it and so on and so forth. But those cars take up a lot of space, obviously. The last couple of years, we've gotten rid of quite a few of them. And I don't want to be the guy here to somebody's car. I don't want to be that guy. If somebody's down, doesn't have the money, won't have the money until tax time. And that's happened. Motor goes out in October and we get our taxes back in January. Well, that car's kind of in a weird limbo. It's not really my job to store it, but on the other hand, it's got to get from my place to their place. Who's going to pay for that tow? And so I always try to, oh yeah, we'll just tuck it out back. And so we're trying to really cut down on that. The cars, it's not looking like it's going to be repaired in a timely manner. Hey, it has to go somewhere. It just is what it is. Or like I said, if we can get this other piece of property bought, that will alleviate a lot of that storage concern, I think.
Okay. Anybody have any further questions for him?
Now, when we talked about that up there in front of the office, I was trying to listen and keep mental note of what was going on. Can I keep parking up in front of the office? Is that a thing or?
I think that's a good spot for customer parking. Yeah. You're in and out throughout the day, and then the overnight was the only thing that was mentioned, yeah.
Because what I'd like to do is, God bless us all, some people have a hard time figuring out how to park a car. And I ain't kidding you, a couple of weeks ago, I came in there and somebody, a tow truck, had unloaded a car in a flower bed, parallel with Hospital Drive. The left set of wheels were in the street, and the right set of wheels were in the flower bed. What? Really? That was just on a Saturday, and I just happened to be coming through town. What on earth is going on here? So, the car didn't run, so I had to get my tow truck out, load it up, get it moved, but that's happened. Well, just this morning I came in and somebody had parked, there was parking spots in front of the shop, in front of the office, plain as day. And they just drove off Hospital, just pointed her at the shop, let the tail end hanging out in the street. It just made zero sense. So what I was wanting to do was stripe it, get some stripes and some parking pylons and make it more permanent, but I didn't want to do that. So we had this discussion to figure out what can be striped and what can't. So if that's all cool, I can knock that out.
Parking is included in the 6 feet.
No, so the six vehicles are what would remain out front overnight. Outside of business hours, might be a better way to.
And so, and just to I just took my own information on that. If we leave, if the boys and I leave, let's say we leave 6 cars in front of the shop, 5-bay shop, let's say we leave 6 cars out front. And we get 2 or 3 cars get dropped overnight. What happens? We get in trouble, or is it just kind of a thing, or just move them in the morning, or? So in the mornings, well, I get to work pretty early. I get to shop.
Unfortunately, we can't control everybody and what everybody does. So to an extent, if it's not an excessive abuse of continuance. You know, if you have your 6 cars there and twice a month, you have 4 cars show up overnight, I think that's an understandable. side effect of
Correctable
action that
Sure.
you're gonna be very quick. Yeah.
So, yeah,
As long as you're striving to control it.
Yeah.
right, that's so,
Control people, 4 people dropping cars off in the middle of the night, or 2 trucks dropping one off, or anything like that.
right, and so, again, when I get to the shop pretty early in the morning, and it's just the biggest game of Tetris you'll ever see in your life. Okay, that car's 8 feet long, it'll fit over here, this car fit over there, so I get there pretty early in the morning and I get everything staged. And that's why that south lot in the alley is so important, because I can get those cars staged out back. So when the boys get in, we can start knocking them out in order of, okay, the parts will be here first, second for this one, it come in, they go up front, we get Mr. or Mrs. Customer on the phone, it can go on down the road. And we just kind of do that. And over the last couple months, since this really became an issue, I've made a lot of changes to ensure compliance. Again, like I said, there's no cars left outside the fence at night in the alley. We make sure that all the cars are inside, or at least up in front of the shop, and the gates are closed. So it looks nice. I've got a lot of compliments about that, which is pretty cool. But I don't really have any other questions, or just
Anybody have anything?
If we take out number 8, do we have to do a new amendment? Do we have to amend this, or can he come back if he decides to build and we change it then?
I'm sorry, I just wanted to touch on one thing before we go forward. So the property, the parking lot that he's alluding to, the issue is it's city property and there are utilities that run through there. So if during the day there is something that needs to be corrected in that spot, Public Works is having to contact, if it's an off hour. So in speaking with our Public Works Director, it is in the best interest of the city to have that remain open on that south side of the property.
Which this
South of the
covers.
fence.
South of the fence and in the alleyway.
Unfortunately,
the fence is built to the property line. It goes right there.
But he just stated that he'll make sure nothing's there overnight.
Understood. But in speaking with the Public Works Director, who, those are his right of ways, so
Right.
that's his department. If there is ever an issue, I mean, I can see that what's being stated, but just my side of it is that, if there's vehicles left there over the weekend, things happen.
Right.
The history of this business, we are here for those reasons, that if there's ever vehicles left there and there is needed access to dig up that for whatever reason, it's was asked that this remain open. With your question 8, or item 8, if you were to take out, there shall be no additional expansions, what could be done is to modify 5, the total number of cars fenced area shall be limited to 40. You could modify that to say that could fit adequately. I know that kind of is a broader, but at least if he was to extend, it would have to fit within the fence. So that's also an option. Or if you don't know where your plans are at, we can just do what you recommend, and then you could approach again if we need to.
I like that term better, instead of putting a number on what it fit adequately.
But
Yeah, that fits nice. I like that. Good.
it also gives us to be like, I don't think so. Two-way street.
But that,
Yeah.
like that, I can appreciate that concern about the utilities thing, which is why I was hoping we could use just during business hours with absolutely no unattended parking. So if there is an issue, we're in the shop, hey, we got a problem. Matter of fact, I would be the one that probably knew the issue was there before the city did. To be fair. But anywho, that would be cool if we could use that. No, I'm talking about that outside parking.
Oh,
Yeah, and adequately, I really like that. And we make it fit.
So did you make number 6? No parking is permitted along the right of way on the south side of the property outside normal business hours?
Right.
Or,
Over the weekend or overnight.
or do you want it, or do you think it's better just to
I'm having a hard time allowing a business to use city property.
city right away?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a hard thing to allow.
Okay, no,
Trying to get in lead chat where territory. On that one.
okay, I'm good with that, okay.
I think unless you have plans to build the second building, pretty quick. I think it's, if we leave 8 in there, then he can always come back and just, because you'd have to apply for a second building
Okay.
anyway.
How soon are you looking to construct the second structure, another structure? So if we, if
I
they,
already bought the building.
okay, so that's, I think it's fair then if he's purchased it, then
To take it out.
take it out.
Okay.
So. Okay. Anybody have anything else?
So then if we are removing, there shall be no additional expansions of the building.
Yeah.
The building. Modify number 5,
Yeah.
the total number of cars in the fenced area is limited to 40, no more than 10 inoperable vehicles may be stored no longer than 60 consecutive calendar days. How would you like that to read?
The total number. What was the word you used,
Adequate
Randy?
fit.
Okay, the total number of cars in the fenced area shall be limited to adequate parking. No more than 10 inoperable vehicles may be stored no longer than 60 consecutive calendar days.
Okay.
Does that work for you?
Mhm.
So,
And so basically by leaving number 6 in with no parking in that area, he's gonna have to figure out a way to make space inside the fenced area for his parking to be shuttling vehicles.
yeah, you're gonna have to figure out how not to park them on the city's right of way.
I understand that. Now that city right of way, I'm a little, okay, so if you go down, we call it the alley. The city right of way on my side, it's 20 some odd feet, 25, 30 feet. On the south side, it appears to be about 8 feet. Why is that? Why would the right of way,
You're asking the wrong.
I'm just curious, why would the right of way not be, you know what I mean? Wouldn't the right of way be the same distance on both sides of the road or?
Well, that road is not probably most adequately made either. So it's from the center of the road and then it goes out.
That's what I would thought.
This, if you even look kind of like in GIS, the road goes like this. So it's kind of hard to tell. You would have to pull the plat honestly to get your exact right of way.
I have.
So what we were going by was the parcel data, which shows estimated property lines. And that's, you built your fence up to that property line. So that's what it is, after that is city right of way.
Yeah, I didn't want to give up an inch.
I
We took her all.
I understand. I get it.
Where do your employees generally park?
Well, we park out back. That's where we park, is out back. We used to park over on Wea. And then that became, that was a problem for everybody. So then we started parking out back. So our cars are out of the way of the day-to-day. It's all about efficiency. Get everything out of the way as much as possible so we can use the lot to move cars and shuffle to prevent from going out in the road. And
So off of that, Jessica, could there be any compromise on like employee only parking that way? There's no possibility of inoperable vehicles or waiting on parts. That way, if something does come up, we know they're all operable vehicles that can be moved quickly.
I'm sorry, I was just clarifying employee parking where,
South of, between the fence and the alley.
I think.
On the right of way.
I think city managers are kind of, that's right, I think that, this goes to council for final, and I think that gives us plenty of time to consult with Lee Tech Weather to figure out what parameters would be adequate for that if it can. Because obviously it sets a precedence of.
Right, well,
yeah,
I'm basing it off of, he said a lot of times it's customers' vehicles, he's waiting on parts, so
Sure, sure.
sometimes those might not be completely operable. But if we could compromise on employee only.
That come and go on a daily.
Right, and put signage up that it's employee only, and that way we know they're 100% operable. If the city needs them moved, they can be moved quickly.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you made that comment, because to clarify, yeah, nothing outside the fence is not running. If it's outside the fence out back, it runs. It drove itself there.
Right.
It's, Mrs. Johnson's car's waiting on an oil change kind of thing. It's, yeah, everything outside the fence runs. Nothing out there would be inoperable, but I'm glad you made that comment.
So with the motion, I would recommend if you would like to make that change to state it, and then council will also review that. We can address it then as well.
Okay, so. What number was that?
6 is what.
Number 6. So you were just gonna leave it the way it was on my packet right here?
Mhm. Yeah, unless you
Thank you.
can just put employee parking.
Yeah, maybe just add at the end, except for employee parking only.
All right. You have all the changes.
Yes. Adequate parking, employee parking.
I like that word.
Well, parking.
I like
I should
that.
never have said it.
I love it.
Should we add signage? Having put signage, that way customers can't just pull up and park there
Sure. Signed employee.
with approved signage, maybe.
Which you said, what approved part, what'd you say?
What was my original?
You said to add, number 6, no parking is permitted along the alley right away on the south side of the property except for employee parking only.
With approved,
we can
how about
reword.
with approved signage?
Okay.
Good. Other
You
than
good?
that,
Very good. Okay, I will, since I started to make the motion earlier, I will go ahead and make the motion now. I move to recommend the approval of the amended conditional use permit for heavy retail service at 102 South Hospital Drive, Clint Davis, the applicant, with the changes that we have approved.
Got it.
Something along those lines.
Got it.
Got it?
Yep.
Okay, I've got a motion,
I'll second.
got a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none?
Sorry,
Oh,
sorry, I jumped cut on you.
no, okay, go ahead. Hearing none, we'll put it to a vote.
DeGreen,
yes,
McLean,
Yes,
Calvin,
Yes.
Parks.
Yes.
Mallard.
Yes.
Upshaw.
yes.
Dees.
Yes.
Sorry,
No, you're fine.
we got vacation.
That was the next thing I was. That was the next thing I was, yeah, your mind left us a while ago then.
Next,
Okay.
it'll go to. Please have full. So you might be the.
Well, let's do it for Amber.
Okay.
I'll offer a recommendation, they put their final stand.
Yeah, thank you. All
I
right.
appreciate that. Thanks a lot.
All right, the next item is the Community Economic Development Director report.
Okay, so we're flying with permits, we're at a total of 217. Building inspection, Keith was on site yesterday at Scooters, and has completed under slab and, exterior sheathing. So they don't have, a project end date, but it is getting closer. Roush Coleman has sold all their inventory, so that's good news.
Good.
I don't wanna jinx it, but July Planning Commission, I have nothing right now, so. We might have a little reprieve from the chaos that we've been through last
Okay.
year. May City Council meeting, LBO, tiny home clusters passed, E&K diesel, CUP, amendment passed, Heatherwood replat passed, which I think, I spoke with our report the other day, I think he said they are close to getting one under contract there already, so that'd be nice. And then Palo Crossings, both the plat and the site plan were passed. And there is now new handicap signs up at the ball fields, so the purchase parking is complete and. That's it. Any questions for either of us?
Nope.
Okay,
No gals. I like him. I never met him before. He seemed like a good guy.
No question for staff?
you guys have anything? Don't, anything, any news?
I did, but I don't remember what it was.
Okay.
So it must not have been critical.
You know where to find them.
Yeah, I do. All right, if that's the case, then I will take a motion for adjournment. Yeah, I've got a motion in a second.
Green,
Yes.
McLean.
Yes.
Calvin,
Yes.
Parks,
Yes.
Shaw,
Yes.
Mallard. Yes.